Well, it's really great being here. Everyone's been saying that, but I love Bozeman. I was so thankful to be greeted by the snow yesterday. That was so nice. Just reminded me of my time here for sure. It's cold. But I graduated back in 2014. I've been a pastor in a little place called Jerome, Idaho for 4 years, and then I'm in Boise, Idaho, moved up to the big city. So that's been a really good time. I just work with middle school students, and it's funny, when I tell people I work with middle school students, it's almost like I'm in prison, because they look at me and they're like, oh, are you okay? Like, how are you doing with that? I'm like, fine, do you want to join me in prison? Like, I need help. But I do want to share one of my favorite memories of MBC, me being here. You students probably know there is a, well, let me back up a little bit. So when you're in the dorms, there's not a whole lot to do sometimes. And so myself, James, and another one of my friends, yeah, sorry, I didn't get the pick on you a little bit. We were super bored. And so one of the things that we were like, well, what should we do tonight? And there's nothing to do. We've already ate all the cereal that we got from Rose Hours. So what should we do? And we thought it would be a great idea to go crawl through the storm drain that's over here. You know where that road is? There's a storm drain over there. And we're like, that's a really good idea. Let's crawl through the storm drain. And so it's late at night. It's snowing out. And so we start crawling through the storm drain. It's super cold. And I remember just stopping in the middle of the storm drain, and I just start gagging. I'm like, dude, there's duck poop in here. Like, I just realized in my head there's probably duck poop, and I'm walking or I'm crawling through it. And so anyway, we get out and then we jump in one of the office buildings' ponds, to clean off. But yeah, anyway, you guys didn't want to hear that, but that's okay. I wanted to hear that. But anyway, I'm really thankful to be here. I definitely feel underqualified to be here, just hearing what other people have been saying. But I'm really excited to talk at this conference because I really believe in the vision of having a conference for rural church ministry. I think the rural church is so important to the body of Christ and something that's completely overlooked by a lot of churches. And so I just love the emphasis that we have. I love the rural church. When I was in Jerome, Idaho, we had a small church, and it was a great time. My favorite thing about rural churches, easily, are the potlucks. Okay, potlucks are awesome. Potluck as a word makes no sense, but potlucks are amazing. I remember going on tour, actually, with the wards, and we went to little small rural churches, and they'd have potlucks for us at every single one. And so pretty sure I gained like 10 pounds in 2 weeks. But it was worth it. So anyway, I love the rural church. I'm glad to be here. Our topic today is called Scrolling Through Life. Very clever. It's all about teenagers and youth and technology and just the effects that it's having right now on Generation Z. And my goal for today in our time is to not look smart or clever or anything like that. I just want to help you guys as much as possible. I want to help you guys to give you something that you can bring back to your churches, to your youth groups, to your leaders, to your parents, just something. Because if you leave here saying, well, that kid was, decently okay, that's fine. But if you bring nothing back to your place of ministry, then we've wasted our time here completely. So that's been my prayer this whole time. I'm going to pray, and then we're going to jump in. God, thank you for this conference, and man, it's just been so impactful on me so far, and I just pray as we go through just this next generation that's coming up and just the developments that we're seeing, that we'd be able to navigate through those and understand that you have a plan for these young people. And it can be a very frustrating topic, but I believe with your guidance and through your wisdom, we'll be able to sort through it. Amen. Kind of before going into our main body of our topic, I want to give you guys a perspective that I think is so important before we get into other things. And this is good for all of this stuff that we've been talking about in this conference. But it's this, and if you have your Bibles, please turn to 2 Kings chapter 6. And while you're turning there, let me give you a little bit of background of what's going on here. So Israel is getting attacked, surprise, surprise, by Syria or Aram. And the king of Aram is getting frustrated because Elisha, the prophet, keeps thwarting his strategies. So the king of Aram is sending like little guerrilla warfare to different towns to attack. And Elisha is saying, hey, Jehoram, which is the king at that time, this king is going to attack here, so let's build our military right there or remove those people, okay? And so the king gets really upset, and he decides to send a big army to surround the city of Dothan, which is where Elisha and his servant are. And so this is what goes down. Says now, verses 15 through 17. Now when the attendant of the man of God had risen early and gone out, behold, an army with horses and chariots was circling the city, and his servant said to him, Alas, my master, what shall we do? So he answered, Do not fear, for those who are with us are more than those who are with them. Then Elisha prayed and said, O Lord, I pray, open his eyes that he may see. And the Lord opened the servant's eyes, and he saw, and behold, the mountain was full of horses and chariots of fire all around Elisha. That story is incredible. You should keep reading because it gets really spicy. It's so good. But my main point in highlighting that is I think many times we are Elisha's servant, where he gets up, he eats his cereal, whatever, and he goes out and he sees this army surrounding this city, and he tells Elisha, pretty much, we're doomed. What are we going to do to get out of this mess? And Elisha says very calmly, do not worry. We have an army on our side that is going to make this a blowout. Okay, it's not even going to be close. And so my prayer for myself and for you is the same as Elisha, is just to open our eyes. Open our eyes to see that we need God's power to fight this battle that we have with this next generation. But even before that, to open our eyes that there's a spiritual battle going on for these kids. Open our eyes to see that there's spiritual warfare going on that I think a lot of times we just miss and we just see what's in front of us. Ephesians 6:10 through 12 says, Finally, be strong in the Lord and in the strength of his might. Put on the full armor of God so that you will be able to stand firm against the schemes of the devil. For our struggle is not against flesh and blood, but against the rulers, against the powers, against the world forces of this darkness, against the spiritual forces of the wickedness in the heavenly places. There's always more going on than just meets the physical eye. Have you guys ever heard the phrase, you miss the forest for the trees? It's this idea of having this tree right in front of your face, right? And I think I live this way many times when you're just bogged down with all the details, these little details, and you don't take a step back and see what's going on. And so my prayer is that we will be able to open our eyes and see that there is this spiritual battle going on, and maybe not in the same way that Elisha's servant saw, because honestly I think that would freak us out a little bit, but be able to take a peek behind the curtain, maybe, and realize there's more going on that just meets the physical eye. I think it's so important. So we cannot forget that our battle is not against flesh and blood. It's not against technology. It's not against teenagers. It's not against their parents, even though it seems like it sometimes. It's not against those things. Our struggle is against the forces of evil. The devil's goals have been the same this whole time. When Satan fell, his goal has always been to destroy belief in God, to taint anything good that God has given us, and he's a liar and he's a murderer. Those are his overarching goals that the devil has had. But I believe that his schemes change. Old goals, new schemes. Because we fight an enemy who's a very personal enemy. He knows what to do. He knows how to tempt people right now. And so through the change of culture and society and times, he's not stupid. he's going to be doing different things. And so I believe that he is using technology right now to be one of those schemes that he's using for creating that disbelief and tainting the good things that God has for us. Not yet. I believe that you guys are here today because hopefully you care about teenagers. Okay, I hope that you do. I hope that you care about the new generation. It's an exciting place, exciting time for these young people. And I hope that you're in here too because you know of some students in your own family, in your church, in your community that just really need Christ. And you love them. And you want to help them because we see that there are definitely issues going on. And I want to tell you, if you are a church leader in here, which I think everyone is, I just want you to know that you are so important. You are so incredibly important to Gen Z. I remember growing up when I was 16, and I didn't have a super close relationship with my father. And a church leader took his time to start discipling me, even though there was nothing in it for him. And I didn't get a house key to his home, but I got the garage door code, which is just as good, okay? And so he was one of those guys that, you know what, anytime you want to come over, anytime, I'm here. And that was so impactful for me as a teenager. I just saw him actually 2 weeks ago, and I said, you know what, I want to make you proud. I want to make the Lord proud, but I want to make you proud because you've invested so much in my life, and hopefully that is paying dividends now. And so I don't care if your student ministry is 30 kids or 3 kids, because really it only takes 1 or 2 kids who love the Lord to make an eternal impact. Okay, let's keep going. The digital age. We obviously live in a digital age, and the world changed on June 29th, 2007. Does anyone want to take a stab at what happened? Okay, that's okay. Yes, the launch of the iPhone came out on June 29th, 2007, and there's not many things that we can say are world changers, but this definitely was a world changer. When a smartphone came out, you could carry around really a mini computer. You could also say the same thing about 1990 was when the World Wide Web was launched. Totally changed the world, how we connect, how we talk, how just production in general, changed the world. And guys, it's not slowing down either at all. I mean, we think that, okay, well, we've reached a certain point of technology. No, it seems like it's getting more and more steam. And I'm not very old, but I can only imagine for you older generations, it seems like the last 20 years have been insane in the sense of phones and connectivity and all of that stuff. Now, there are definitely benefits to technology. So I want to say, what's a benefit of technology? I'm a talker. I'm a youth pastor. So, yeah. What's a benefit of technology? Because not everything's bad. What's good?
Information at the tip of your fingers.
Thank you. Yes. Information, knowledge. I mean, who needs what? Convenience, right? It's very convenient to have something in your pocket, right, where you can call someone or look up some sort of information that you need. Yes, those are good. Other things, communication, I think is massive. Communication, I can't even imagine living in a world without a cell phone now. How you do that? Especially maybe being a parent and not having your kid have a phone while he or she are driving, right? I mean, back then, that's just how it was. Entertainment, though, is honestly great. My favorite thing about technology is Google Maps, okay? Because I am terrible at directions. And so Google Maps the whole time, like, yes, I like this. I don't like the voice, but I like Google Maps, okay? Now, there are some benefits to technology, but today we're talking about the issues with it, especially with the development that we're having right now. And I have a short clip that I want to show you just to represent what we're seeing nowadays.
I mean, look at the one on the right.
Do you have to make faces when you take selfies?
Wait, one more now.
Oh, there you go.
Better angle. Oh, check it. Did that come out okay?
That's the best one of the 300 pictures I've taken
Look
of
at-
myself today.
Every girl in the picture is locked into her phone.
Oh, Lord.
Every single one is dialed in. Welcome to parenting in 2015. They're all just completely transfixed by the technology. David Peralta. Oh, hold on. I'd take a selfie with the hot dog. Selfie with the churro. Selfie just of a selfie.
I can't even get my phone to take pictures.
Took a picture of your thumb last week. That was good.
Here's my first bite of the churro. Here's my second bite of the churro.
You know, the beauty of baseball is you can sit next to your neighbor and have a conversation, or you can just completely ignore them. Peralta knocks it into center. David tonight 2 for 2, a leadoff single here in the 4th, and nobody noticed.
Help us, please. Somebody help us.
Yeah, we need to. Can we do an intervention? How about if we send Baxter out there and he just collects all the phones? You're not getting them back to the end of the game.
I think that I love that video. I've watched it so many times I can quote it now. But you see this all of the time with young people. They can be anywhere and they will always have their phone out. Today, I think there are two plain issues too that we see with phones and screens. Okay? First one, wasted time. Obviously, we know this. Wasted time. The amount of time students spend just looking at screens is astronomical right now. Okay, that's an easy thing to point out. Second, exposure. A terrible thing too. They have, kind of like you were saying, the world at their fingertips. And so with time and with desire, they can expose their eyes and their ears to anything they want. And that's a problem, right? Now, those two things are very basic, obvious things to point out with the development of technology and Generation Z. But my question for today, are there deeper issues though? Are there deeper issues than just wasted time and exposure? And I believe that there are. Today, we are focusing just on Generation Z. Okay, these are ages 3 through 23. Today, though, we're going to be narrowing that down to 11 through 22. Even though, you guys ever seen babies on iPads? It's insane. It's like they might as well just have like a coffee mug and like their iPad and just be swiping. They know how to use it better than I do. It's crazy how these little kids, like 2 years old, know how to work these smart devices. It's insane. Anyway, so Generation Z, I think is very important to focus on because by next year, they will be 32% of the population, which will surpass millennials as the largest population. So it's important to talk about them. I just want to pause here for a second. I want to take a moment and recognize that millennials and Gen Xers and baby boomers, we haven't gotten along very well, okay? And so for today, what I want our generations to unite finally, okay? I'm tired of hearing about millennials this, millennials that. Let's focus in on a new generation to make fun of or whatever, okay? I'm a millennial, okay, so maybe I'm a little bit biased, but a lot of the times, like, well, these millennials, they're ruining the world. Can we just come together in love and unity for the next, 35 minutes and talk about Gen Z for a little bit? Okay, I'm just saying. And honestly, the thing is too, is that the statistics for those other generations, not so different from Gen Z, though either, okay? But we're not gonna pick on y'all today. We're picking on Gen Z. Okay. I wanna give you guys some just statistics on phone addiction and all that stuff. I don't wanna statistics you to death, right? But I think it's important for us to see kind of the issues right now so we can kind of address it later on. Screen addiction statistics. So 96% own a smartphone. Remember, that's that 11 through 22 year gap. 96%. Students touch their phone approximately 2,617 times a day. That's not just on the back or whatnot, that's on the screen and the buttons. All right, so that's why they're able to figure that out. 2,617 times. Oh. That's also why phones are the dirtiest thing, because no one ever cleans their phone, but they're also the most touched. And so, yeah, if you ever touch someone else's phone, wash your hands, okay? That's an extra, that wasn't in there, okay? Students check their phones on average once every 3 minutes. And outside of school, 74% of time is spent online. It was crazy because I just went to one of my students' football games, and the other team was a combination of two big junior highs. And I was like, why are they combined? That is so weird. They've always had teams, separately. And so the parents were talking to me, I was talking to the parents, and they said, we just haven't enough kids. Everyone is playing Fortnite. They are. Everyone is playing Fortnite right now, and that's what the kids will say, is I don't want to play football. And I'm not saying football is, amazing, you have to play football, but just the realization, though, that kids are not playing sports anymore, they're going home and they're playing video games, that these two big junior highs would have a combination. It's insane. So, all of this, the recipe of technology and Generation Z have produced certain things that I think are pretty easy to at least look at and help out. So, first off, a reality lived through screens. Their reality is lived through their screens. They have never known anything different. For even millennials, even myself, I know of times where I would listen to books on tape or have little cassette things. We didn't really watch TV that much. But for Generation Z, they've never known a world without something you can hold in your hands and look at and interact with, okay? And quite frankly, we've helped them create this reality, though, too. We've allowed them to do this because in a lot of sense, it's easier to let your kid play on your phone or a smart pad or whatever. Smart pad is kind of old. An iPad than to deal with stuff, right? So we've allowed this. We've helped cause this, though, too. And just saying, well, stop it. Just don't do it. It's not going to happen. You can't do that. You can't just tell a kid who has a screen addiction, just stop doing it. No, that is their reality. How do you stop his or her reality from happening? They are creating his or her life online. That is their life. And a lot of times, it's interesting too, the way screens are, is it's not just one solid thing. If you ever take a picture of a screen, you know how you see all those lines going, it's just a bunch of flashing lines, really. And they actually say, scientists say, that it reprograms your brain the more you look at it. Reprograms your brain. And so, for a student who plays Fortnite, they will get the same euphoria of beating someone in Fortnite, of being number 1 out of 100, right? Than scoring a touchdown. Same thing, the same chemicals. They think they've achieved something when really they haven't achieved anything at all. And quite frankly, no one cares either. Maybe they're friends. But it's just interesting how our brains are now being reprogrammed to do that. Okay, so we can't just say, stop it. I think the biggest evidence of this reality is the Emoji Movie. This is the worst movie to ever movie, okay? Who has seen the Emoji Movie? I'm so proud of all of you who have not seen it. Do not watch it, even though it's on Netflix and it's free for you, free. Do not watch it, okay? But this movie should have never gone past the creative team at Sony, okay? Who would come to a creative team and say, let's make a movie entirely based off of faces on your phone? That sounds so stupid, okay? But Sony was like, you know what? There is financial opportunity in this. An Emoji Movie, everyone hated it. 8% on Rotten Tomato, which is a review site, 8%. So no one liked it. But here's the thing, because students see Emoji Movie, I love emojis, they will drag their parents to go watch this terrible film. And so it grossed $86 million at the box office, and they're making a sequel, okay? it grossed out great films like, I just looked it up, The Emperor's New Groove, which is by far a way better movie, okay, than the Emoji Movie, okay? I think this is honestly for me the biggest proof of just the deterioration of Generation Z is the Emoji Movie was actually a thing, okay? So that's number one, a reality lived through screens. Second, we actually see some encouraging signs. So I don't want to be all negative on Generation Z. There are some actually really good things happening within this time gap, right? That 3 to 23. First, less alcohol. They're not drinking as much. In 1985, 62% of 11 through 15-year-olds had had alcohol without a parent. And today, it's down to 38%. 62%, 38%. That's gone down. Less drugs. They're also doing drugs less. In 1985, again, 55% of 11 through 15-year-olds had had a cigarette. Today, only 18% have had a cigarette through that time, 11 through 15. And in 2001, 29% of kids had had an illegal drug while in high school, and today that's down to 15%. 29%, 15%. There's just less drugs, less alcohol, less drugs, and honestly, less sex. There's less sex going on too with Generation Z. Baby boomers and Gen X reported that they had been or were actually in a dating relationship while in high school, while right now Gen Z say about only 56% are either dating or had dated. Okay, but dating doesn't always just mean sex, right? But in 1991, sexually active teens dropped 40%. Birth rates for teen moms, right, are down 67%. But you might be saying, well, what about the abortions? Yeah, that's probably where it's going. Abortions are down, this is again from 1991, abortions are down from 40% to 26%, okay? So these are great things. Less alcohol, less drugs, less sex is going on right now, which is awesome. And that might seem great, right? And those are good developments, but I believe that, again, those devil's schemes are somewhere else now. We're not seeing it so much on those fronts, and those are still important. I get that. But I think it's moving a little bit. Devil's smart. He's moving. So let's talk about some alarming signs that we see in Generation Z. They are the most connected and lonely generation. I think the irony of Generation Z is that they are so connected to others through their phones and through other people, with other people, but they are so lonely as a generation. And there are incredible new ways, I get this, there are incredible new ways to connect with others through social media, Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, texting, all that stuff. But they are suffering, though, from empty and shallow relationships. And most of them don't know that, though, because that's the only way that they've made friends is through screens. I'm a youth pastor, so I love object lessons, okay? So we just have to roll with it. I brought a ball of yarn with me today. Now, yarn is the worst, okay? I was homeschooled my whole life, and so being a homeschooled kid, there's certain things that you do, right, as a family. Besides wearing a lot of denim and camo, you crochet, okay? Crocheting is a very stereotypical, homeschooling kind of deal. And so we used to go to Joann Fabrics all the time, and I hated going as a kid. Like, I can only look at the buttons so much. Like, I don't care about these buttons, okay? But I want to imagine that this are connections that kids are having. Now, here's the thing. Ryan, can't you hold this? When a connection is made, it's just weak, okay? Yarn is lame, right? By itself, it's not strong at all. So this is a connection that I feel like kids are having with other kids. But the thing is, because of the distance of social media, kids aren't seeing each other very much. It gets longer and longer and longer away. And the thing is, when yarn gets pretty far, it gets weaker. And so it's not that just the connection is lame, the idea of this long distance also makes it very, very weak. And that is what I think we're seeing in social media. Because social media promises connection. It does. And the problem is, it's true, there is connection. But the connection that it's offering is so weak and so fragile. And I think it's having a negative effect on Generation Z. Thank you. You're a great holder, Ryan. That is your new calling. It's good. I'll give this to my mom later. She can crochet. Many students today have admitted that the more time they spend on social media, the more discontent they feel, and the more lonely they feel. I want to talk about their friends. I want to talk about friends and family a little bit. So friends, since 2000, hanging out with friends in real life spaces have gone down 40%. And they have been replaced by virtual spaces now through phone apps or whatever. So places that you used to see teens at, like, I don't know, the arcade or the park, I don't know, Sherry's at 2 o'clock in the morning, those are empty now. You don't see kids there hanging out anymore at all. Simple communication skills have gone down completely. With my students, I don't know why, it just bugs me so much. And I've had classes of just how to meet someone. How do you meet someone? You shake their hand, you make eye contact, and you say more than just how are you doing. Ask other questions. Most of the time, when I say, hey, look, a new person in the group, this is awesome, make sure you say hello. You know what they do? What's up? Go talk to them. Okay, actually meet them. Okay, this is really, the chance, they're new. We want them to get incorporated into the family of God, all this stuff. And they just do not know how to do it. They don't know how to do it with peers, but they're even worse with kids, and especially adults. Adults are scary. I remember one Sunday I made my students go and say, hey, you go meet an adult you don't know for the first time, and I will watch you. They hated me. And that's okay. They're like, we never want to do that again. I was like, you did a great job, though, so good on you. But they don't know how to befriend people in just normal ways. The way they befriend people is by just saying, friend or whatever, or follow someone on Twitter or Facebook. Also, all the encouraging signs that we just saw from the last bit are just a product of a less real-life social time, okay? So things like alcohol, drugs, and sex are social activities, right? And because they're not getting those social activities, they're not doing those things, okay? No one, for the most part, teenagers are not going to drink alcohol or smoke their first cigarette alone. They're not gonna do that. That's lame, that's boring. They wanna make some memories with some people, right? Nowadays, since they're not hanging out in real life spaces, they're not doing those things. So even the encouraging signs have kind of there's two sides of that coin, I guess. Family. So that's their friends. Family. Teens are homebodies more than ever today. They spend a lot of time at home, and most of the time on their screens. They're just alone in their room. But just because they're home doesn't mean that they have a great relationship with their parents. Doesn't mean they have a great relationship with their siblings at all. If you go to any restaurant, if you guys go to a restaurant tonight or as you travel home tomorrow, I want you guys to just take a moment to look at a family eating dinner together and how many of those kids or parents are on their phones. Just take a moment. I'm guilty of it too. It's funny, there are some, I looked this up, there are some restaurants out there, mostly back east, that are offering discounts for families who will put away their phones for the entire meal. They'll have a basket in the middle of the table, and they say, you'll get a 20% discount if you do not touch your phone during this meal. I think that's awesome. I think that's really, really awesome. And so, yeah, I was just coming back from a Boise State game in Wyoming, and 11.5-hour drive, I was riding with a family, and no one talked to each other at all. All the kids were in the back, the parents were in the front, parents were talking, all the kids, beep, beep. 11 and a half hours. No one wanted to. I was like, hey guys, want to play like a road trip game? No. Like, okay, you go back to watching Stranger Things, okay? Whatever. But even these, it's affecting the family, it's affecting friends, okay? I want to give some statistics on pornography, though, too. We can't talk about screens without talking about pornography. Because here's the thing, less sex doesn't equal less lust, okay? That's not the case at all. Kids are still as horny as ever, okay? But it's just shown in different ways now. 90% are casual or accepting of pornography. They don't really care that much. I think this one's really interesting. Teens believe that not recycling is worse than viewing porn. 57% actively search for porn monthly. 51% of males and 32% of females view porn before the age of 13. The thing is, the more time, I mean, it's inevitable, it's gonna happen. If you're on your phone for that long, you're either gonna come across it or you're gonna actively search it out. It's just gonna happen. And we see that teens are getting phones, or I guess kids are getting phones at 6, 7, 8 years old. It's just gonna happen upon it. We're gonna keep moving, actually. So all of these alarming signs lead to, I think, some alarming things that I think we need to address in Generation Z. First off is this idea of discontentment, because they see other people's lives and that they realize that their life isn't that way, and so they're discontent. But then that turns into isolation, and so they don't want to be around people because people might see through the facade and see that they're not a great person, so they isolate themselves. That's why they're homebodies now. Okay, discontent, isolation, which then turns into loneliness, obviously, because they are alone and they have those shallow relationships, which then turns into depression, because obviously they don't feel like they have friends, or they're distant from their family. And the last step of that, you guys want to take a guess? The last step? Suicide. Suicide rates have spiked. Incredible. It's almost, I mean, for me as a youth pastor, this is very sobering. Because in Generation Z, we just haven't seen anything like this before. And I really think that screens are a contributing factor to that. Teens who spend 3+ hours a day online are 35% more likely to be suicidal. From 2006 to 2016, Gen Z suicidal rates have risen 70% at 13.42 per 100,000 people. And just so you guys know, right now in America, the rate for everyone as a whole is 4.23, okay? But just for Generation Z, it's 13.42. And this one, for you guys who are Montanians, okay, should be extra alarming. Montana has the highest rate at 26 per 100,000. That's almost double what we see the national average is for Gen Z. Males die by suicide 3.5 times more than females, but females commit self-harm 2 times more than males. Man, this is tough. As a youth pastor, there's hardly a week that goes by that I don't hear a student tell me, or I hear of a student who's dealing with this, who's dealing with suicidal thoughts, who is thinking about self-harm, or they're already committing self-harm. And I believe that this is something that we really, really need to focus in on. It's kind of maybe risky, I guess, but if we're not asking these questions, these teens are dealing with this stuff all by themselves. These are some of my students, and when I see my students, I can point out so many of these guys deal with each one of those things. But for instance, yesterday, I just got a text during one of the sessions that one of my girl students is lesbian now. That is not uncommon at all. Actually, this is not in here. Did you know that 2/3 of Gen Z identify as heterosexual? So 1/3 of Gen Z, member of that 32% population, don't identify as heterosexual. And that doesn't mean that they're identifying as homosexual. That just means it could be homosexual, it could be bisexual, that could be pansexual. A common adjective that Gen Z has gotten is that they are a fluid generation. They don't really have any strong commitments to anything. They are a fluid generation. And so many times these kids just don't want to say, I'm this or that. I'm whatever. But these students are dealing with all sorts of stuff, and even at this young age, we have to know that they know things and they're thinking of things, okay? The battle is changing fields. That's one of my main points for tonight, so please get this. The battle is changing fields. I hope you are starting to understand the different fight that we have right now. You can still teach alcohol, drugs, sex are bad, right? And those are still going on, so still teach that those things are bad. But loneliness, isolation, discontentment, porn, depression, and suicide is where the battle is taking place right now in the life of Gen Z. And I want you guys to use your time and your energy wisely to not stand on the battlefield where maybe there's not so many kids and you're swinging your sword as hard as you can, while the battle is somewhere else on the battlefield of this idea of depression and suicide. I want you guys to move fields. And this is hard for older generations. It's hard for me too, because there's some of us that just say, suck it up, you know? Like, you're fine. You live in America. You have a great family. Like, you have tons of blessings. What's going on? Like, you're not depressed. And while that's easy for me to say, right? I think it's easy for older generations just to be like, come on. We can't do that. We can't do that. We have to address these deeper issues that we're seeing. Okay, so what do you do as a church? Here's our action points. Okay, what do you do as a church? I'm going to go through these pretty quickly. First off, commit to teach God's word and commit to prayer. Sometimes I feel like we like to overcomplicate things and simply preach Jesus to them. The other sessions have been great at simplifying. Don't just, if someone's gay, the goal isn't just to make them straight or whatever. We want kids, we want students to love the Lord. And we want the Lord to come into their life and change who they are. Those other things are secondary. We don't care about their behavior so much as their heart. And that's the things that we need to focus on. So preach Jesus. He's the only one that will satisfy you. So all those, discontentment, loneliness, all those things can be healed by the Lord. All those things can be healed by the Lord. So teach the gospel, okay? Ask tough questions, though, too. Do not be afraid to ask tough questions. I get a lot of my leaders who want to be the friends, right? They don't want to be actual leaders because they don't want to ask the tough questions. And this kind of gets into that don't just entertain. Kids don't need more friends. They have plenty of friends, right? They might be shallow friends, right? But they have plenty of friends. What they need in their life is truth, and they need leaders in their life. They don't need more friends, and they don't need more entertainment. We have smartphones. We can go anywhere. If I'm standing in line too long at Wendy's, I can pull out my phone and play a quick game. They don't need more entertainment at all. And so there's some of these youth groups who just play games the whole time. I just had a student go visit another youth group. I'm not dissing this other youth group, but they had a 2-hour-long time together, and an hour and 45 of that was just playing games. And she said that the youth pastor got up, didn't open his Bible at all, just kind of talked about some, you just do this and you be a good person and Jesus loves you. Goodbye. I just don't understand that, especially with the opportunity when kids come to us and we have that responsibility and that awesome privilege to preach Jesus to them and they're there. I don't want to play dodgeball. Sometimes I do. I want to peg them in the face. Okay. But we have to have the desire to preach Jesus because that's the only thing that's going to change them, right? 34% are non-religious, okay? This is the biggest group we've seen. We call them nuns, all right? The biggest group of nuns because they don't have any affiliation. And most people see this and think this is a really bad thing. I think this is actually a really awesome thing because we have kids coming in who have no background of the Bible at all. And so we can't just pretend that these kids have basic Bible knowledge. And even I am, taken back a few times when I'm saying, hey, turn to Genesis. And they're like, what's that? Well, it's in the Bible. It's the first book. And we have to, shed this idea that kids are coming in with a background of the Bible. They just aren't. They're just not religious at all, which I think is a great thing, which means they ask a lot of questions, which is super fun. Okay. Cover everything in prayer. Cover everything in prayer. This is huge. There may be people, and this is practical for you guys, there may be people in your church who don't want to work with teenagers. I get that. I actually get that a lot, all right? Especially middle schoolers. No one wants to work with middle schoolers. But you know what I say to them? I say, you know what? If you don't want to help out on Wednesday nights, can you just pray for our group then? Can you pray for us? We could really, really use that. And so if you're not interested maybe in hanging out and throwing dodgeballs, pray for your teens. Please do that. We have a group of elderly that meet every Sunday morning, and every time I put in there, pray for our youth kids. Please, please pray for me, pray for our leaders, pray for these kids. They're just going through a lot of stuff right now, and we could use your prayers. So just cover everything in prayer. Partner with parents. You have to. Oh man, you have to partner with parents, even though it's tough sometimes. This is essential. Without parents' participation in things, you are putting a lid on your ministry. Okay, I've always said that being a youth pastor is not really being a youth pastor, it's more being a family pastor, because if you don't know the parents and if you don't know the siblings, you're not doing your job, honestly. You need to know more than just the kid. Okay, so you have to partner with parents. Evaluate your ministry to them. Parents are very touchy, okay? Parenting is hard, all right? I don't have any kids, but I can imagine parenting is very difficult. And so any time that you want to partner with parents and help them, just be aware how you're coming across. Because how you say things might come across as you're a bad parent. And then once they get that, they will shut off and be like, you are a jerk, and I'm taking my kid away, or whatever. So please, please evaluate your ministry to them. If you're pretty close friends, you can say more. If you're not very close at all, take some time, get to know them. Don't just talk about their kids. Ask them, hey, what's your favorite NFL team? Oh yeah? Well, they suck. There's just things that you just get to know people. Get to know people, evaluate your ministry. Educate them on generational issues and dangers. So kind of what I'm doing with you guys, hopefully this is something you can take back and say, hey, these are the issues that we've been seeing here recently. Are these things you're seeing in your own home? And then help them out, okay? On your notes, I have given some apps and programs on the back that I've researched and verified, and they've been really, really highly rated on things like screen time and parental controls, Covenant Eyes, protecting kids from pornography. And those are things you can show your parents and saying, hey, these are things that you can use to help cut down on some of that stuff, okay? And then always encourage and offer support. Always encourage and offer support to them, okay? Always say, hey, you know what? I understand that parenting is a hard job, and I want to support you. Because here's the thing, as a youth leader or anybody, you can never replace the parent. The parent will always have more influence in their life than you ever will. It's just how it is. And so if you can come alongside them and help them, it will be better than you just doing things all by yourself. It just will. Always offer support. Have things where you have parent and student nights. I love that. Having parents and students together without their phones are great times. Last couple things. Use technology to minister to teens, okay? So we're not just throwing technology out completely. We're not just saying, well, get rid of your phones, get rid of your screens. We're not saying that, okay? But you can use technology. Turn their phone into a channel for biblical truth, okay? Phones are great in the sense of that whole knowledge thing. There's the Bible app. Those kind of things. The Bible app's kind of cool because you can go through studies with students together and you can comment on things, which I've done with a few students. Like, hey, we're going to go through this study of, pride. So we're going to, and it's funny too because you can see who's read and who hasn't read, and you're like, dude, for real? Like, come on, it was like 3 verses. And so you can kind of keep track of where kids are reading or where they're not reading, and you can keep each other accountable in that way, okay? And this kind of goes along with that. You start a quality and updated social media page, okay? And those 2 words are very important, okay? A quality one and an updated one. I see a lot of youth groups start maybe a Facebook page or an Instagram, but they post like 2 things on there and it's been 3 years. And you're like, okay. It just becomes cobwebbed. No one cares about it anymore. But the thing is, kids are looking at their Instagram all the time. In fact, Instagram is now has taken over Facebook for Gen Z. So Instagram is like, that's what they love. So if you can have an Instagram where you post pictures of Bible verses or things like, hey, come to youth group tonight, those kind of things, do that. And what's actually awesome is if you get a teenager to do that for you, okay? Because that's what I did. I tried to do it last year by myself, terrible at it, okay? I don't even know how to use it. They're like, hey, just PM me. Like, what does that mean? But now I've asked a couple of students who are obviously obsessed with Instagram, like, hey, can you run our Instagram page? Can you do that and just post Bible verses and stuff? They're like, yes, we will. Perfect. You do your thing, okay? So do that. Create opportunities to disconnect, though, also. Okay, so we use the technology, but there are also times you just want to disconnect entirely. This is one of my just pet things. Use real Bibles. Man, at the beginning of youth group, I have a bunch of Bibles, and I was like, no Bible apps. Sorry. Because I know if you're on your Bible app, you're probably just, you're going to see a notification from something, and then you'll check that, which would lead you to something else, and it just becomes a spiral. So I always say, you know what, use real Bibles, and Bibles are awesome. Just having a real book is cool. I know I'm a little old school in that way, but that's okay. Use real Bibles. Events that don't include a screen, okay? I think sometimes for youth events, it's kind of a cop-out sometimes to have a movie night or a video game night, because those are easy. Try to stay away from those. They get enough of screens, okay? That's sometimes when I go with my discipleship group, they're like, hey, let's go to a movie. I'm like, no. Because none of us are going to talk during a movie, okay? So just try to stay away from events with screens. Well, I talk. You're saying that? I talk during movies? I know, okay. Because I want to converse, okay? You ever had those people that are like, oh, this part's so good, this part's so good. And then it's not good, and you're like, haha, sympathy laugh. Okay, anyway. That's like the emoji movie, it's the worst. Okay, youth camp. Youth camp. Now, I get it, at some smaller churches, you don't have a youth camp that you put on for yourself. I get that, but please search for one. There are some great youth camps in your area, and I think camp is such an awesome opportunity for kids to put away their phone and actually have a reality for maybe 5 days without a screen. And they actually do a really good job. Most of them do, and they enjoy it. There are some camps I go to where they allow phones. It was interesting. This last summer, we did camp with 4 other churches, and 2 of the churches let their kids have phones, even though we said don't do that. But it just created this really, I don't know, just wasn't good. We had kids, watching YouTube videos at like 3 o'clock in the morning and stuff that were not appropriate, so we had to deal with all this stuff. Just take away the phones, okay? They can live for 5 days. Well, they need it for their alarms. That's why you're a leader. You're the alarm, okay? Anyway, find a youth camp. If you don't have a youth camp that you're a part of, please find one. They're, I think, just an incredible opportunity to disconnect. That's about it. That's about it for my talk. I hope some of those things made sense, especially the idea, and my main point is this changing of battlefields. Not so much on this alcohol, drugs, sex, but depression and suicide and isolation, which is happening, are things that we really, really need to pray for. And I hope there's some stuff there, too, that you can take back to your church. In closing, though, I do want to read from Psalm 78, 4 through 7, and this has been my prayer for my youth group throughout these last 5 years. So Psalm 78, 4 through 7, and this is talking about God's word and his instruction. It says, "We will not conceal them from their children, but tell to the generation to come the praises of the Lord and his strength and his wondrous works that he has done. For he established a testimony in Jacob and appointed a law in Israel, which he had commanded our fathers, that they should teach them to their children, that the generation to come might know, even the children yet to be born, that they may arise and tell them to their children, that they should put their confidence in God and not forget the works of God, but keep his commandments. Let's pray. God, thank you for just any of the influence and responsibility that any of us have in here for students, and just seeing it as such an important role in the church, because we are developing future leaders who will eventually replace us. And God, we need your strength, we need your wisdom to do that. And so I just pray that you would lead and guide us in the way we should go, asking tough questions, talking to parents. Those can be very difficult things. But those are things I believe you've called us to. Praise in your name. Amen. If anybody has one or two questions, I think we have a little bit of time for that. Yes?
So these things you have on the back, these programs and maps, would that be something that, I mean, what do you tell a parent on how to help manage the phone situation with their kids? I mean, how do you guide parents?
Yeah. I think the first thing you do was that you explain to them maybe some of those statistics on, hey, these are the things that we're seeing in Generation Z right now with your kid, that he's in that group bracket. And then you can ask, are these things that you're seeing right now in your own family? And so you're really having them answer their own questions, I guess. Because they will admit saying, yeah, a lot of times we don't ever have dinner at the dinner table anymore. We all go sit in the living room and we watch TV. And so you can say, well, I have these programs, right? Because a lot of kids now too will just take their food and they'll go up into their room and they'll just watch stuff on their bed. And so if you have those programs, which I think limit certain apps and those kind of things, or it just keeps track, you can say, hey, your kid, maybe you give them 2 hours of screen time. Because then after that 2 hours is up, then you get to have family time, But I think a lot of kids need that. And quite frankly, kids like boundaries. They will never say that. They will never say they like rules, but they need rules, and they actually do appreciate them. So, yes.
More of a comment. I just came back from a training for suicide. And one of the things that they said, especially for Montana, was that you showed that males commit suicide more than females at that age. Although the stats show that males are using guns more and they're accessible to them, and so they're completing the suicide rather than girls are overdosing, and it's not successful. But the rate is still as high as males. And also, he said oftentimes we say, "You're not feeling suicidal, are you?" And then of course the child's going to say no. He said we need to directly say, "Are you suicidal?" and ask that question.
Yeah, I think that's well said. Because I think girls, I hear this too, they'll do things and they'll try to, commit suicide by overdosing or cutting themselves. But in reality, you have to do some a lot of damage for you to actually kill yourself. And so that's why the idea of that self-harm is way higher in girls than guys, because guys know that a bullet's just going to end it, which is very, very sad.
The other thing that I thought was so great was if you do have guns in the home, he said to make sure and always have the gun locked up separate than the ammunition, because it's flight or flight. And so if they oftentimes have the gun available but have to go find the ammunition, within that time their brain will switch over to the fight rather
Sure.
than I just want to end it.
Yeah, and I totally get you and the gun safety stuff. Quite frankly, for parents, I just never want to get to that point, though, either. I want parents to have this conversation way longer before they're worrying about locking up their guns. So if parents are actually involved in their students' lives, they would know that they're having a bad time, or they're having a rough time at school, or bullying and that kind of stuff.
We're not teaching them how to cope with hard things. So if they have a breakup with somebody, they just immediately go want to end it because they don't know how to cope because of the screen time.
Well, usually their coping, what I've seen is their coping mechanism is commenting or gossiping online. They don't even gossip to one another anymore. You know, they direct message and they send different things or send pictures, and it's sad because you're right, because the way they cope is just getting sympathy from their friends through screens, which is no way to cope or deal with any kind of issues. And again, a lot of this just goes back to parents. I'm sorry, like I just cannot overstate the importance of a parent in a student's life, because a parent should be the one that comes alongside their student and says, hey, you look down today. What's up? What's going on? And not just talk about how academic, you know, how well they're doing academically or how well sports is doing. I think Christopher said that in there. Actually ask them about their spiritual life. And I think parents will say, I care most about their spiritual life, but they'll talk the least about it. And it's so upside down how that is. They'll always ask them, hey, how was school today? But they'll never ask, how's your relationship with the Lord? And that needs to happen.